A look at some news stories. Here's some ones that caught my attention. So Trump has agreed on his social network that he does plan to declare martial law as soon as he takes office and send the military to round up people for mass deportations, which is more or less what we expected. But while I was interested to observe his priorities, I assumed from his campaign rhetoric that his number one priorities would be Mexicans, but it is not. He said his number one target is Chinese people, followed by a variety of Central American people, but not Mexicans. So that was pretty strange. And anyway, it's pretty scary. Yeah.
I think it's just kind of important to note and bring this up that a lot of people like to hammer home the fact that he's saying, oh, illegal criminal. And if you look at history, if you look at mass deportations in the U.S., it doesn't matter if you're illegal, it doesn't matter if you're a criminal, it just matters what you look like and what your name is.
Yes, very much so. For example, on the campaign trail, J.D. Vance said, we're going to deport the Haitians in that place in Ohio, I think.
Yeah.
But they said, but they're legal. And he said, well, I don't agree with the law they used. So that makes them illegal. And now they're talking about, there are people who are like in a stage of immigration that's legal, and they're talking about how to reverse that. And of course, another thing which I've heard in previous generations of this, because it's been a Republican talking point for a long time, is the fact that they're here without papers is illegal. They're all criminals, if you want to look at it that way. Although I heard someone say, I think on Meet the Press on Sunday, that the number of them that actually have criminal convictions in their home country is 500,000. I highly doubt that, but I don't know. I know I worked on a case when I was doing financial work for an escrow agency that had to do with lawsuits about water pollution, and in the poor part of Albuquerque, there were a ton of Mexican immigrants and other Central American immigrants undocumented living there, and they were due a payment for having drunk polluted water, but I couldn't even tell you how many people were there. They'd have like 10 people sharing a house, no paperwork anywhere about them. They'd have like 2 IDs, and they would just say, okay, you're Juan today because you got a job, and I'm Juan tomorrow. And there was nobody had any idea how many there are or who they are, so how can you know what their criminal convictions are? Anyway, it's pretty disturbing, and I think it's going to be pretty crazy here. San Francisco is trying to prepare for it, but apparently can't do a whole lot probably.
Recently, Mexico is throwing out a bunch of their illegal immigrants right now.
Oh, and so people that immigrated there, well, not from here, I guess from South America?
No, right now Mexico is throwing out a lot of white Americans who went down there illegally.
Americans went to Mexico illegally?
Yes.
Oh.
A lot of them do because it's cheaper living.
Oh yeah, I've heard this. Yeah.
So,
in fact, I even heard people going there to get jobs. When it got really hard to get jobs here.
Because they're not paying taxes, and whenever they buy goods, they buy with U.S. dollars, which drives up inflation. So
yeah.
So
well,
Americans out of there.
Yeah, I guess they have the right to do that, but it's hard for you to imagine that it really is a huge hardship on the Americans. I mean, they're probably not going to get killed from coming back here. But a lot of the people who migrate here really can't go home. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say the president of Mexico actually made a statement on that, declaring that if, Trump, you can send over Mexicans that illegally immigrated or whatever, but we're going to send all your Americans back. And there's some number, I think they said 2 million that are over there.
Wow.
Which is sizable.
That's interesting. I didn't know he said it about the immigrants. I know he said it, the nations have said this about the tariffs. If you put a tariff on us, we'll put a tariff on you.
Well, that was the president of Mexico saying that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, anyway, this one I didn't know about until I heard Keith Olbermann talking about it. But this is real. The Trump team is now talking about reactivating the military leaders that were involved in the withdrawal from Afghanistan just so they can court-martial them and perhaps try them for treason, which is, as usual, pretty outrageous considering Trump is the one that demanded we withdraw from Afghanistan. He didn't do it, Biden did it, and by the way, it was done pretty badly, but court-martialing the military people that obeyed their orders seems really harsh, and they say they're very serious about this, and we'll see what happens. So it's an exciting time in history. This is going to be a whole volume of future histories, exactly the decline and fall of the American experiment. So I was amazed by this. I was in Beijing when the air pollution was incredible, and they had this number. You can see it on, if you look at the pollution charts around here, like below 50 is good, 100 starts to get bad, and the worst it ever gets around here is like 150. But in Beijing, it was like 750. and it was just awful to walk around outside, your throat gets scratchy. But Delhi just reached 1,500, which I don't think anywhere else has ever been like that on Earth. And that's extremely bad for you. And they're saying even indoors with 2 air purifiers, it's still so awful that you can't breathe this stuff. So this, I think, is the way Los Angeles was in the 60s, which is what led to pollution controls in America. And they're beginning to talk about pollution controls in India, with the most polluted air in the world. And they already have implemented some pollution controls in China, where it was really terrible and is supposedly better now. Anyway, pretty outrageous. And so Pete Hegseth is going to be, I think, in charge of the Department of Defense. And he's a Fox News weekend host, and there's interesting stuff to know about him. He, of course, doesn't want women in combat roles. That's a pretty common Republican position. But he paid a woman who he apparently raped for an NDA to get her to stop talking about it. And he published a column saying having sex with an unconscious woman is not rape, which is apparently what he did to her. She was having a drink with him, and then she can't remember anything for 6 hours. And then she wakes up somewhere else, and then he gets a rape kit and discovers she's been raped. And he's a serial philanderer, of course. He likes waterboarding, likes torture, doesn't think the Geneva Conventions matter, doesn't see any reason not to use nuclear weapons, and so on. Also did this one of Trump's most awful thing, pardoning members convicted of war crimes. All the military people, the generals and such, said absolutely do not do this. We have to maintain morality among our troops, and these guys did horrible war crimes, and they made it a media event on Fox News to say that this guy is great and you should pardon him, and Trump did pardon him against the advice of all the military officials. And Hegseth was part of that, so he's going to be in charge of the Department of Defense. And he probably couldn't survive a confirmation hearing, but I was just listening to it this morning. Legal experts say there is, in fact, a little-known presidential power. He can force Congress and the Senate to go into recess, so he can make recess appointments. And that's what they're thinking of doing. Anyway, this one is pretty amazing from a web security point of view. People are getting these emails, spam emails, on Microsoft 365 from another trusted 365 user. And it turns out that there's a place in Microsoft 365 portal where you can report like a technical support problem, the administration portal, and you're only supposed to be able to send a short message, but it turns out the length limit is not enforced on the server side, it's enforced in JavaScript on the client side. So you can just inspect the web page and change that number and then send big messages through this, which is just supposed to be like a tech support problem, and they're using it to send spam within the Office 365 system. And it always comes from an official email, which is from Microsoft 365. So this is a fairly common flaw. It used to be that people would leave open SMTP servers where anybody that would connect on port 25 could send email from your domain. And of course, the bad guys would send spam until you get blacklisted and such. And that's what's happening here. These guys, the email comes in from the official Microsoft like tech support email, which of course is trusted by all the Office 365 environments. So this one is quite important for cybersecurity. The CISA, the Cyber Infrastructure Agency, has been doing excellent work, publishing very useful papers. I use them all the time, guidance on how to secure critical infrastructure and other systems. But unfortunately, in the 2020 election, they said that the election had not been hacked by China and was legitimate, and therefore all the Republicans absolutely hate them. And Rand Paul has promised to completely destroy that agency, and the director, Jen Easterly, who's done a very good job, is going to resign on January 20th. She might as well, the ship is sinking under her. Her resignation is not entirely abnormal. It's common for agency heads to resign so they can be replaced, but they're probably just going to take this agency down entirely, like anything else that does fact-checking. Republicans do not want facts. And they're all required to say that something was illegitimate about the 2020 election, except for all the Republicans that won, that was okay. And somehow it wasn't wrong with the 2024 election now that Trump won. So anyway, that's a doctrine of their cult. They must claim that something was wrong with the security of the 2020 election and get rid of any agency that would dare to criticize that. Anyway, this is new to me. Apparently, if you hold down the control key while you click something, I suppose in Microsoft Edge, it downloads it and bypasses the warnings. I didn't know this, of course. And so there's a new wave of attacks that send you something to say, oh, you have to hold down control while clicking on this, social engineering. And certainly, I wouldn't know what that does, but it does, apparently bypasses my Windows Defender or something, yeah.
The way control clicking works on
Yeah.
stuff, it opens it in a new tab.
Yeah.
But when you open certain things in a new tab that are downloadables, it opens it as a new tab and then asks you if you want to download. If you do Control-click,
Yeah.
it automatically tries downloading.
Yeah, okay, that's
Because
good.
It just skips the whole opening it in a new tab thing, it just goes straight to downloading.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I remember a few years ago, there was a flaw in Apple Safari that if you downloaded multiple files at once, they would go without any confirmation. So you could just click a link and download a bunch of stuff without knowing it. Anyway, so that's a fun thing to know. If you see something that tells you to hold down Control, don't do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, that's enough of that.